For decades, the formula for the G.I. Joe universe remained on familiar ground. It was plain and simple military combat to demolish global terrorism. It was a world of rifles, tanks, and masked megalomaniacs, all thirsting for world dominance. But in 1987, the franchise took a sudden turn into the bizarre, replacing terrorists and gunpowder with mutating spores and living, breathing technology. At the center of this grotesque world was a villain unlike any other, Golobulus. Conceptualized for G.I. Joe the movie by writers Buzz Dixon and Ron Friedman, Golobulus was brought to life by Ron Rudat's nightmarish character design. Hasbro executives wanted something that would shake up the public perception of G.I. Joe and challenge the young imaginations of their target audience. The result was Cobra, an ancient subterranean civilization that changed the Cold War-esque setting of G.I. Joe to that of a hidden and unfiltered sci-fi domain. Golobulus was the supreme leader of this empire and the indirect architect of the existence of Cobra itself. The reason Golobulus was so incredibly unique is his ability to shatter the established reality of the G.I. Joe mythos. A hybrid of man and serpent draped in living crustacean armor, Golobulus rules over Cobra with an iron fist and biological superiority. He brought a sense of Lovecraftian dread into Saturday morning cartoons, and yet, as much as he felt jarringly out of place alongside the regular characters, he was beloved by G.I. Joe fans. His undeniable weirdness, sheer audacity, elevated by the legendary voice of Burgess Meredith, cemented Golobulus as an unforgettable G.I. Joe icon. Golobulus commanded Cobra on the silver screen and won over many hearts, but how does his serpentine tyranny translate to the printed page? What dark, forgotten secrets actually define the origins of this wickedly cunning ruler? Let's find out. Behind the scenes, the creation. The idea for Golobulus started with Hasbro pushing the creators for a new character that would outrank the Cobra Commander. Buzz Dixon thought it was ridiculous to pop out an antagonist of great magnitude without giving him a solid backstory. Dixon came up with two ideas. Either Dr. Mindbender creates a new, more powerful and competent leader, or a twist reveals that Cobra is a front for a more sinister organization. Hasbro combined the ideas, and the result was Golobulus, the leader of Cobra, who planted the idea to create Serpentor into Mindbender's head. Dixon's original idea of Golobulus was completely different from what graced our screens. Dixon had based the character on Charles Laughton, the Academy Award-winning British and American actor known for movies like Spartacus, Mutiny on the Bounty, and The Private Life of Henry VIII. He was imagined as an emperor like Nero, who was carried around everywhere by a bunch of acolytes who fed him grapes and made sure he never needed to lift a finger. And then, in the end, Sergeant Slaughter would confront him. Golobulus would then sigh at the prospect of having to fight him, and then immediately launch into this martial arts machine, completely subverting the expectations that his initial image had set. Hasbro thought the idea was ineffectual and changed it to the version we know and love today. We can't talk about an emperor by simply ignoring his empire, Cobra. Cobra is inspired by James Hilton's Lost Horizon and H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. This fictional empire, its aesthetics, and nightmarish creatures that call it home were all based on Hayao Miyazaki's 1984 flick, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Dixon did not want to emulate the movie, but bring about the same feelings the film brought in the viewer. It did influence the conceptualization of the monsters of Cobra, as it looks like they're straight out of the Valley of the Wind. By the way, the writers never wanted this empire to be named Cobra. They just had it put down as a working title based on Shangri-La, the ancient Himalayan civilization in Lost Horizon. But then, Hasbro saw it and convinced them to keep the name as Cobra. That's not the only regret Dixon has, though, as he thinks the Himalayas were a poor setting for a snake-based civilization, preferring to set it in the Amazon basin if he could get a do-over. Meeting Golobulus. As I told you just now, The very first time we see Golobulus is in G.I. Joe the movie, which begins with a fierce argument between Cobra Commander and Serpentor in the Terrorism Fortress. Serpentor blames all their failures on Cobra Commander's gross incompetence, while Commander denies it. Their argument is interrupted by the arrival of Pythona, a humanoid woman who walks in after using organic weapons to subdue all the guards who stopped her on the way. Cobra Commander recognizes Pythona, who introduces herself as an emissary of Cobra La, an ancient civilization. Pythona tells them that if they manage to steal the broadcast energy transmitter, aka BET, they can remotely power any electrical device, and they will rule the Earth once again. The two attack G.I. Joes in the Himalaya, where they're testing said device. Commander and Serpentor are not successful in their mission though, as the G.I. Joes use the BET to capture Serpentor and fight off Commander. Cobra Commander runs into a valley in the mountains and runs into Cobra La, the ancient hidden civilization. Pythona orders him to come with her, but Commander tries to escape and is forcefully taken into the city by Nemesis Enforcer. Pythona offers a huge gem to anyone who manages to get her security info about the place where Serpentor is imprisoned. Zarana manages to do it by playing into Lieutenant Falcon's womanizing way. Pythona and Nemesis Enforcer use the info to free Serpentor the very same night. They all meet in Cobra La, and this is where we get to see the Emperor of Cobra La for the very first time, Golobulus. The Supreme Leader tells Serpentor that he owes his life to him, and it was he who implanted the idea of Serpentor and the skill to bring him to life into Mindbender's head. The first issue at hand is the trial of Cobra Commander. Golobulus reveals the history of Cobra La to everyone present. The prehistoric civilization of Cobra La ruled Earth with biomechanical machines long before humankind existed. Cobra La was destroyed by the brutal ice age that claimed many species, and the evolution of humans didn't help either. Survivors of the Empire retreated to the Himalayas, lying in wait for the perfect opportunity to reclaim the Earth. That opportunity presented itself when one of the brilliant scientists working for Golobulus began to work on a plant that produced dangerous spores. Due to an accident in his lab, the spores exploded on his face, and the scientist's face mutated and made way for multiple eyes. Despite being disfigured, Golobulus chose him to go into the world and raise a mighty army to destroy human civilization. Unfortunately, Cobra Commander had failed him and would now be punished by a weapon that was the result of hypergenetic manipulation, a plant that produced vicious and poisonous spores that had the ability to degenerate any species they touched into primitive, incompetent life form. Golobulus wanted these spores to be released from space to infect the entirety of the human race, so they could be reduced into mindless beasts. The citizens of Cobra La would be spared as they lived below a strong icy dome. The spores did not mature in space though, and for that end, Golobulus needed the BET. After laying out his plan, Golobulus finds Cobra Commander guilty of failure and exposes him to the spore. He begins to turn into a snake, and Serpentor asks him to be imprisoned with the rest of the Joes. When the guards go to throw him into prison, the Joes escape. They don't make it out of Cobra La though, as the vines stop them. Only Roadblock, who has Cobra Commander to guide him, successfully escape. Mercer, Falcon, and a few of the Joes infiltrate the Terrorism, where they see Serpentor making plans to steal the BET. They install a bomb and flee, leaving the Terrorism in ashes. Serpentor does not waste any time grieving his loss and immediately attacks the G.I. Joe base, where the BET is housed. The Joes are no match for the brutal but effective forces of Serpentor. Serpentor sends Duke into a coma and escapes with the BET. Serpentor heads straight back to Golobulus and presents him with the BET. They turn it on and the spores in space begin to draw energy to mature. The Joes trace the BET to the Himalayas, where they meet Cobra Commander and Roadblock. The two tell them everything they know about the spores, and Cobra Commander leads them back to Cobra La. Golobulus is not an easy foe to defeat though, as he has every single organism in Cobra La to support him. The fight that follows is fierce to say the least. When the Joes get through them, Golobulus decides to get his hands dirty and starts fighting Falcon. Falcon is not as strong as Golobulus, but he sneaks away from him and shuts off the BET. Golobulus calls the effort futile, as the pods have matured by now, and leaves in his flying pod. Falcon is not out of ideas yet though. He rushes back to the BET and turns it on full power to decimate the spores in space before they return to Earth. As they celebrate their success, they get news that Duke is out of the coma. The gravelly voice of Burgess Meredith, provided to Golobulus, is arguably one of the most notable features of the character. Surprisingly, Burgess Meredith starred in a 1945 film, The Story of G.I. Joe, a tribute to the American infantrymen. So not only was Burgess in the G.I. Joe movie, but he was also involved in a film that explores the toys World War II roots. A full circle moment for sure. You will not see Golobulus in G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the 1982 Marvel comic series, as the creator, Larry Hama, was insistent on keeping the series as realistic as possible. So he eliminated Cobra and a lot of other characters who he thought were silly. As a side effect, Cobra Commander got a new backstory. He was a used car salesman who changed gears once his brother Dan returned after serving in Vietnam, with deep psychological trauma that eventually led to a car collision and his death. The Bot Connection. When Dreamwave Productions acquired the license for Transformers from Hasbro, they cross-produced 4 miniseries that explored different iterations of crossovers between Transformers and G.I. Joes, with Devil's Due Publishing. Our focus is on the 4th miniseries, Black Horizon, which consists of 2 double-size issues. Written by Tim Seeley, with illustrations from Andrew Wildman, this miniseries revealed a dark connection between Cobra and Unicron, the dark god of the Transformers. We begin in 1978, when 2 G.I. Joes from the Adventure Team, consisting of the original G.I. Joe, Joe Colton, and Atomic Man Mike Power, are led on a trek to the Tibetan part of the Himalayan mountains by Chokpa. Suddenly, their enemy, General Mihai, leads an airborne attack on them. As luck would have it, they are taken down by humanoid creatures, notably a winged humanoid we all know to be Nemesis Enforcer. Chokpa immediately recognizes them as the Cobra, the men under the mountain, and urges his companions to leave immediately, but they're stopped by Bludgeon, the Decepticon who hides his mechanical nature using an organic shell. This shell, known as the Pretender, makes him look like a skeletal samurai. As they fight this new gigantic foe, Pythona arrives, ordering Bludgeon to leave them alone as she wants a new pet. In the present, General Clayton Abernathy, or Hawk, wakes up from a nightmare. He has recently resigned as commander of the G.I. Joes in order to assist the Autobots, but many still think he's a kook. He calls a journalist over for a one-on-one interview to set things right, but the interview's over before it begins as he is called by an Autobot. The Autobots meanwhile try to capture Destro, but are partially successful as Destro escapes, but his snake soldiers are captured. Meanwhile, Hawk hears a loud voice scream, "I'd return," making him reach out to Optimus Prime, who agrees to investigate whatever weird thing is happening on Earth. He leaves Ultra Magus to be the leader in his stead. In the kingdom of Cobra, Pythona tries to get a reaction out of her pet, Joe, and asks him how he feels about being the only one of his kind, to know that the entirety of humankind will be eradicated to make way for a far more civilized species. Joe simply stares at her, and as he's no fun to Pythona, then she decides to feed him to Unicron. Nearby, Lord Golobulus gets the news that G.I. Joe biodrones are approaching fast from the west from Mindbender. Golobulus is not happy about his baths being interrupted. In fact, he would have digested Mindbender if he had not proved to be useful by aiding him in repairing the God Beacon. But when duty calls, all annoyance must be ignored. He summons the Pretenders. Flint, Optimus Prime, and Hawk arrive in the Himalayas to find out more about the mysterious voice Hawk heard. Pythona has Destro transport a bag of mushrooms to her. What Destro doesn't know is that the mushrooms are actually the eggs of a Nairath, a type of lizard. The eggs saturate the air around them with a spore, which is detected by the mother Nairath from thousands of miles away. So, when the Autobots went to capture him and his ship, the spores had attached themselves to them, making it easy for Pythona's forces to track them with a mother Nairath. In the Himalayas, Optimus Prime, Flint, and Hawk are attacked by Bludgeon and the Cobra soldiers. Flint's bullets prove to be useless against the Cobra, but Hawk easily takes them down by aiming right into their helmet lens. Hawk then helps Optimus fight off Bludgeon by uploading 11 million traditional Cybertronian songs in his system all at once. Golobulus watches the fight from Mindbender's lab and is disgusted that a profane mechanical creature is running free, tainting their sacred land. Mindbender reminds him that they have bigger fish to fry, as the Chaos Bringer is on his way and they need to eliminate the Autobots immediately. While all this is happening, Joe Colton picks his handcuffs and escapes. Firewall contacts the G.I. Joe secret headquarters and tells them Hawk needs help. Optimus tells Hawk and Flint about the approaching danger, the source of the voice Hawk had listened to. Many millennia ago, there was a god called Unicron, who was also known as the Chaos Bringer. He was banished from his world, and he traveled the universe looking for fuel to maintain his massive body. Any planet that he encountered was his meal, and he especially liked devouring inhabited planets, as he could strip the world of its resources and enslave the inhabitants to maintain his massive inner body. 160,000 years ago, Unicron arrived on Earth. Humanity had not even evolved yet, and Cobra was the civilization that looked Unicron in the eye. Cobra had perfected the use of organic technology. They were masters of bioengineering and had created entire cities out of living organisms. The weapon they used was a spore that feasted on metal. Looking at the spore, the god was scared. Knowing that they would both end up destroying each other if they ever went to war, the Cobra and Unicron reached a deal. They would exile themselves to a corner of the Earth and live in seclusion while the humans evolved. Once humans had grown in number and technology, the leader of the Cobra would send a signal to Unicron to come pick his fruit, which was now ripe. Unicron would arrive, enslave all the people there, and leave Earth for the Cobra to rule. Just as Optimus's story comes to an end, Bludgeon, having recovered, attacks them, but luckily for them, Colton arrives and asks them to follow him. Golobulus is irked that Joe escaped and he blames Pythona for it. Pythona tries to get out of the doghouse by telling him that Joe is just a worthless old man, but Golobulus does not listen. He holds her personally responsible for it, as she was the one who had decided to imprison him for decades instead of simply killing him. To make sure that Joe is killed, he orders her to make up Nemesis Enforcer. Lady J lies to General Flag that Flint has been captured in Tibet, so she and Duke can go help Hawk in his new adventure. Meanwhile, Hawk is awestruck at meeting Joe Colton, who is too busy updating them all about Bludgeon's detail with Golobulus to save himself. Bludgeon catches up to them, and another fierce fight followed. Elsewhere, Pythona cuts her palm and puts blood drops into the pod that holds Nemesis Enforcer. Nemesis Enforcer bursts open, and Pythona gives him orders to take out Joe Colton. She then joins Golobulus in welcoming Unicron and turns off all communications so that nobody interferes. Firewall and Cosmos arrive in Tibet to help Optimus too, but within seconds, Mindbender captures Firewall to be sacrificed in honor of Unicron. Colton's team has been holding up really well so far, as they fought through Yetis and sent Flint off to space with the metal-eating spores that Cobra threatened Unicron with millennia ago. Lord Golobulus addresses the citizens of Cobra with great pride, as he believes it's now time for the world to belong only to them. The humans and their biomechanical beasts had stripped the Earth of its life force, but nothing like that would happen again, as they're going to be visited by a great metal messiah, Unicron. The citizens of Cobra erupt in cheers, crying out for their civilization, when suddenly, Optimus, Colton, and Hawk gate-crash the party. The bound Firewall is delighted to see her friends, but Golobulus less so. He orders the creatures of Cobra to protect him, and they spring into action. Nemesis Enforcer immediately descends on Colton, while Pythona chastises him for escaping and choosing not to live his final days in peace under her. Colton tries to talk some sense into her and tries to appeal to her compassion. He offers to hold diplomatic talks between humans and the Cobra, as an entire purge makes no sense. Pythona refuses to admit she has any compassion, but she stops Nemesis Enforcer from killing him as a sign of respect. She's surprised at the action, as she had expected only disgust and pity towards Colton. Ignoring her words, Nemesis Enforcer lifts his blade and Pythona stabs him in the back and kills him. She kneels in front of him and tells him that there is no escape other than death. As Optimus handles the creatures of Cobra, Golobulus decides to begin the ceremony to initiate Unicron's consumption of humanity. He lifts his dagger up to kill Firewall, but Hawk shoots at his arm, making him lose his weapon. With a mighty swish of his tail, Golobulus disarms Hawk and demands to know why humans try so desperately to avoid their inevitable death. Hawk has only one answer for that. Destiny is not written in stone. He punches Golobulus hard and begins to fight him. Golobulus bounces back and expresses his abject hatred of humanity, as they would destroy Earth within the coming century thanks to their wars and pollution. Optimus, having dealt with the Cobra creatures, rushes to Hawk's aid. Meanwhile, Flint gets into Unicron's body, tracks his brain, and unleashes the spores to take him down faster. Unicron dealt with the Autobots while the Joes easily wrapped up the fight on Earth. Golobulus is given an ambiguous end once again. Did Optimus Prime kill Golobulus, or did he slither away as he tends to do? We have no idea, but we do know he was not captured alive, as he's not among the prisoners taken into custody by the Joe. This version of Golobulus makes him Unicron's sleeper agent and a really ardent environmentalist. He's not doing what he's doing merely for his selfish desire to rule the world. He wants to protect the Earth from the harms of humanity. A truly noble thought if you think about it in isolation, but the way he went about it though, yikes. The miniseries also answers the question that the movie had everyone asking despite not being in the same continuity. Why was the Serpent King lying hidden for so long? The answer is clear as day. He was waiting for Unicron to step in and take out the trash. Cunningly brilliant and resourceful.
Know that I am Golobulus, supreme ruler of this kingdom of Cobra.
A long leadership, G.I. Joe the movie established Golobulus as the fearless leader who took the executive decision to send a young scientist out into the world to do his dirty deeds for him. The 5-issue miniseries Cobra Commander of the Energon universe gives us a new take on the relationship between Cobra Commander and Golobulus. It's not of a subject failing to meet the high expectations of the king, but of an incredibly ambitious man who poses nothing but a threat to the almighty ruler. The Energon universe is still ongoing and was started in 2023 when Skybound Entertainment, as an imprint of Image Comics, got its hands on the Transformers and G.I. Joe licenses from Hasbro. Before we dive into it, let's first take a look at the 2024 special issue of Energon Universe, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, Robert Kirkman, and Joshua Williamson, and drawn by Ryan Ottley, Lorenzo De Felici, and Jason Howell. This issue sets up the story well for Cobra Commander. It all started with a truly nasty fight between Megatron and Optimus in a spaceship near Earth. Optimus kicks him off the ship, and as he barely holds on, he orders Starscream to save him. Starscream blasts him away to gain control of the Decepticon. Megatron crash lands on Earth and loses consciousness. When he wakes up, losing an eye and his arms, he finds himself in a lab of Cobra Law. Megatron escapes and threatens the scientists into giving him back one of his arms. As he tries to escape, Golobulus enters the lab with his army. It's a clash of two giant egos, as Golobulus thinks he's a filthy metal skunk, and Megatron is surprised anyone can think they can own him. The two clash, but Golobulus drives his trident right into his only functional eye and renders him completely blind. Megatron heads out into the Himalayas, promising vengeance on Starscream. Cobra Commander is written by Joshua Williamson and illustrated by Andrew Milano. It starts at a rest stop where a mysterious man in a coat and a face mask asks the people at a diner if they can give him a vehicle. A man there ridicules him for his clothes and his accent. So the mysterious man kills him and makes off with his vehicle. This man is none other than the Cobra Commander. Let's go back a bit to know how we got there. Cobra Commander was a respected scientist in the labs of Cobra Law when Megatron had been captured. News of his existence in the labs had leaked to the common public, who thought of it as a severe breach of their code of conduct. They couldn't bear the thought of a mechanical metal abomination destroying the sanctity of their land, so they attacked the labs. As the mob grew in size, the guards could no longer hold them back, and the scientists inside grew anxious. The only calm voice was that of the Cobra Commander, who reminded them that even under this duress they must remember that they are scientists, and their primary goal now should be to protect their research. He ordered them to throw explosives at the arriving mob. One of the scientists, in her panic, picked up the wrong explosive and caused the entire lab to explode. Cobra Commander was severely burned, his skin incinerated, and his face deformed, but he survived. As soon as he had a bit of rest, Pythona arrived to take him to their emperor Golobulus. Golobulus was extremely disappointed in him, as he had found Cobra Commander outside and had brought him to Cobra Law so that he could find a purpose in life. Now Golobulus believed he had been let down as Cobra Commander interrogated Megatron, harvested the energy source from him, and used it for his blasphemous technology. Commander did not think he had committed any crime and demanded to know why Golobulus insisted on keeping him under his heel. Golobulus reminds him that there were many leaks about the atrocities happening inside the lab, and the only man to be blamed for that was Commander. Cobra Commander insisted that he was a loyal follower, but Golobulus interrupted him to tell him that he knew Cobra Commander was the one who instigated the riots. Since Golobulus had healed him, he wanted to see him die in front of his own eye and ordered his men to murder Commander for his betrayal. Commander fought off the attackers with powerful little mechanical bugs that he had created that dug into their bodies and killed them. As the men keeled over, Commander told Golobulus that he had found a way to strengthen Cobra Law, and what the king had seen had been merely a taste of what was to come. He insisted that he was a loyal servant of Cobra Law, and asked to be trusted with a special mission in the outside world, which would further Golobulus' control over the world. Cobra Commander had tracked down energy signatures similar to that of Megatron's fuel in the outside world, so he wanted to get his hands on it, unlock the transformative powers of the fuel, and build an army that would be unstoppable. This is the last we see of Golobulus in this miniseries, but I am going to tell you the whole tale, as who am I to deprive you of a wonderful adventure? Moreover, the tale also gives you insight on the kind of guy Golobulus is. Presently, Cobra Commander is stopped by his bodyguard, who reminds him that he's under strict orders from Golobulus to stay with him. The bodyguard is surprised that Cobra Commander would harbor so much animosity against his own people that he would not hesitate to kill them. But Cobra Commander tells him that humans were never his people, as he found the chaos of their world disgusting. He looks up energy signatures in his wristwatch and follows the path. We see a brief glimpse of the bodyguard's history. He had been woken up by Pythona and given an elaborate biological disguise so that he would not be recognized in public. The two follow Commander's watch through a hole in the fence, right into the Dreadnought territory. The Dreadnoughts are a group of mercenaries for hire, who do not care about anything but fast money. They had discovered Energon and had kidnapped a scientist to work on it. They were also selling bits of the fuel for the highest bidder they could find. Their attack separates Commander and his bodyguard, and soon the former is captured by the Dreadnoughts. Commander is no dunce though, and he manipulated the Dreadnoughts into fighting each other. While they're distracted, he sends a signal to his bodyguard to call him right to it. When the bodyguard arrives, he tears away his fleshy human disguise to reveal he is none other than the Nemesis Enforcer. Within moments, the air is filled with screams and shrieks of pain and horror, as the Nemesis Enforcer makes little work of getting rid of the Dreadnoughts. All three of them, including Zarana and Xander. They capture one of them, Ripper, and make him take them to the secret bunker where they're studying Energon. The Dreadnoughts had kidnapped a scientist and were torturing him into making weapons for them. Cobra Commander is impressed by the work of the scientist, who is so glad to have found a potential rescuer that he reveals he's found a way to dilute the fuel to increase the quality. Unluckily, that is not why Cobra Commander is here. He reports back to Nemesis Enforcer that he's found a scientist who would give them the secrets of Energon, and now Cobra Law would have the greatest army in the world. He asks Nemesis Enforcer to leave with him, but Nemesis Enforcer simply stands, blocking his way. Commander calls him an imbecile and demands him to move, but Enforcer knocks him down and tells him that he no longer needs to listen to the Commander's word. Commander puts two and two together and realizes the Nemesis Enforcer was not sent to help him with the mission, but to kill him. As Nemesis Enforcer attacks him, Cobra Commander tries to hide, telling him that he's loyal to Cobra Law. Enforcer tells him that Golobulus has seen through his lies and would not forgive him for tarnishing their world with metal. No outsider could ever be someone important in Cobra Law, and now that they had a scientist, Cobra Law had no purpose for Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander had figured out that there was a good chance Golobulus would try to get him killed, so he had carried a secret weapon, mechanical bugs that turned into a blasting glove. Commander charged it with Energon and blasted it at Nemesis Enforcer. His number one threat dealt with, Commander then tracked down the Dreadnought they had threatened and got him to reveal the Dreadnought's number one client, Military Armaments Research Syndicate, aka Mars, run by Destro. Commander attacks Destro's storage facilities to get his attention and has Ripper arrange a meeting. With the scientist under his control, Cobra Commander had built a facility to continue Energon research. He shows Destro the facility and the power of Energon by using it to fuel one of Destro's battle android troopers, or BATs. The BAT flies out and kills a group of the Commander's men. Destro is surprised the Commander would kill his own men for a measly demo, but Commander brushes it off, saying their fear and hate are important to keep people in line. Commander offers Energon and his technology in exchange for having weapons and vehicles of Mars at his disposal. Mercer and Destro decide to play along with whatever Cobra Commander says for now. They join him in a room where all his followers are waiting. Commander tells them that together they will all be Cobra, as the logo of Cobra unveils behind him. Meanwhile, Megatron escapes from Cobra Law, and Golobulus discovers every bit of Cobra Commander's research. It only makes Golobulus madder, as he learns Commander knew where Megatron was from in the universe, which betrayed everything Cobra Law stood for, and yet continued to house him. He sends another agent to bring Commander back so he can kill him himself. Meanwhile, Pythona explores the history and weakness of Megatron's world. This event shows just how ruthless Golobulus is, and how clever too. He did not let on that he was never going to forgive Cobra Commander for his betrayal. He merely pretended to let him have his way and then asked Nemesis Enforcer to kill him once they found his replacement. Whatever you want to say, you have to admit the man is a skilled administrator. The name Golobulus doesn't really invoke as fearsome an image as Nemesis Enforcer or Cobra Commander does, but what's in a name, really? Golobulus is the ultimate big bad of the G.I. Joe universe, the man who controls Cobra Commander from the shadow, thinking of the betterment of Cobra Law and mapping out the return of his civilization to their rightful place as the Earth's supreme empire. Whatever his iteration might be, in every single one of them, Golobulus is shown to be passionate, clever, ruthless, and cunning. He never takes his eye off the prize, and he does not hesitate to take out any obstacles in his path. He expects perfect loyalty from his followers and is not someone who can deal with stupidity. The only gripe I have about this character is how little we know about his backstory. We don't know what his childhood was like and what events made him the way he is now. Maybe we'll get to know in the comic books yet to come. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, let me know by tapping that thumbs up. What do you like about Golobulus? Do you think he's a well-planned character or a half-baked shoo-in? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe and ring that bell icon before you leave. I'll soon be back with more awesome stuff, but until then, goodbye.